يا الطارش يلم عنا خط بكتابك بترحيبه لو سرابك.
All right. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And welcome to our event tonight. My name is Fasiha and I'll be your host for the night. And with me is Sumaya.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're all well today. I'm Sumaya and I'm also hosting alongside Fasiha. We are so excited to be welcoming you to tonight's event by the University of Manchester's Islamic Society on navigating Christmas as a Muslim revert. So we can only imagine that this season is an anxious and uncertain time for many, especially those new to Islam. You might find it hard trying to juggle the expectations and rights of your family with certain restrictions that Islam places. Some things which were once allowed for you will now be prohibited, and often this change can present as a challenge for both our revert brothers and sisters and their family. So as you know, Christmas in this country is quite a big event. It's a massive cultural holiday. There's a lot of publicity around Christmas. And so making that step between always celebrating Christmas every year to not celebrating it at all can be quite big. And inshallah, our amazing speakers will address how to approach this step and make the transition as smooth as possible. So we also want you guys to feel really comfortable in a community that is always here to listen to you and answer any queries and questions that you may have. So never think that your questions are invalid. We are always here to listen and understand as best as possible. So inshallah, without further ado, we will start.
If we can all mute our mics, please. Thank you. So like Samaya said, it's not only a spiritually sticky situation, but it can also be an emotionally trying time. And one of the reasons this event came about was because of the numerous discussions we've had with the Revert brothers and sisters on campus who are speaking to us, asking us how to navigate this time with their families. So it can be a sort of a pseudo lockdown situation. So you're off from work, you're off from school, you're back home with your family, and suddenly you don't know how to answer a certain question or whether to partake in certain activities or not. So as for the event tonight, the structure is going to be like this. We'll hear from each one of our speakers, and then that will be followed by a question and answer sessions. And you can submit the questions through a Slido link anonymously that will be put in the chat. You can also put your questions directly in the chat, or alternatively, if you could just unmute and ask questions over the mic, that would be fine too, inshallah. You're muted, Sumaya.
Oh, sorry guys. Yeah, just getting into it. So we have three really special guests joining us tonight. Sheikh Bilal Brown, brother Ellis Wood, and sister Ellie Quinn. They will share their really amazing gems from their own experiences, and we're so honored to have them with us today. Alhamdulillah.
So we'll start off with a beloved Sheikh Bilal Brown, he reverted to Islam in 1999, and he spent 8 years across the Muslim world in the Middle East studying Islam in Yemen, in Damascus, and in other places. He's part of an organization called New Beginnings, which is a revert organization. It's also based in Oldham, so that's very local to us, alhamdulillah. Over to you, Sheikh, whenever you're ready.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome everyone, and thanks for inviting me. May Allah bless you for organizing this event and having this concern for converts and new Muslims and reverts, which we don't really see that a lot in the heritage Muslim community. So I think it's really good. Of course, I'm the managing director of New Beginnings, which is a convert care organization that launched the 1st of Ramadan 1441, which is the end of April 2020. And we've had a lot of reception from people wanting to become Muslim all over the world, and people who've newly converted, not just in the UK, but in places that you wouldn't think, in Tel Aviv and the Czech Republic and Ukraine and all other places. And we're dealing with a lot of these issues, alhamdulillah. And one of the ideas I had in mind is just to create something that I wish I would have had when I first became Muslim, and deliver that service to those who need it most. So this is a topic that comes up most, not, just with Christmas. We're speaking about Christmas because we live in a country where Christmas is probably the biggest religious festival celebrated. But it may apply to other festivals like Diwali or Hanukkah or Easter. Yeah, is another time as well. And I think, for people who have just converted to Islam, anybody who's giving you an answer online, or any, mufti that's in Saudi Arabia or Egypt, they do not understand your situation. They're not going to understand the situation that you're in. First of all, they're not going to know what it's like just to convert to Islam. No matter how much people say, I started practicing, at this age, and I feel like a convert myself. It is not the same as coming from disbelief. Living, with a family that are still on disbelief. They're not going to know what that feels like and what that experience is like. And they're definitely not going to know what situation you're in there and then. So a fatwa online is not really going to help you in your situation. And all of our situations are different as well. Yes, we're all coming into Islam, but many of us, we're at different stages in our Islam and in our practice as well. And we have different relationships with our non-Muslim family members as well. We're in different situations, so there won't be one blanket answer that will suit everybody. And to be honest with you, you know best. You're gonna be the one who judges best how to deal with that situation. Okay, there are red lines. Worship, religion, obviously for some, and singing hymns, Jesus, and praising Jesus as your Lord and Christ and all these things. That is, obviously the line that we cross. And participating in the worship of, of religions, a red line that we can't cross. When the Quraysh, they asked the Prophet Muhammad when he was in Mecca, they said, we'll worship your God one day, and you can worship our idols another day. We can, sort of like have this mixed religions together, and, we can share our different worship. And Allah revealed some verses to the Prophet Muhammad. He says, "Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun," say, all disbelievers, "La a'budu ma ta'budun," I don't worship what you worship, and you are not worshipping what I worship, and I will never worship what you worship. Lakum dinukum walid. You have your religion, I have my religion. So the Prophet Muhammad experienced some of these situations, and the other aspect is we must keep good family ties as well. So Allah, has commanded us in the Quran to keep good ties and show good, especially to our parents. So regardless whether they are Muslim or not Muslim, we have a duty to do good to our parents, and even obeying our parents. If they ask us to do something that is not contrary to our religion, might ask you to go to the shop or to the chemist or whatever, or sweep the hall or vacuum or whatever, we have a duty to obey them in that as well, because they're not asking us to do something that's haram or prohibited or even disliked. But if they ask us to do something that is prohibited, have a glass of wine or have some sausages, obviously that's a red line that we don't cross. So there are red lines that we don't cross, but at the same time, it's important for us to keep good ties with our families as well. And this is a difficulty that we have in navigating, especially at times of religious festivals. And it can be a lonely time as well for converts. We might not have support from the community. We might feel isolated from our families. I've become Muslim, and they're celebrating Christmas. It doesn't feel right to me. Okay, so there can be some loneliness as well. And I think us as converts, we need to come together and support one another, especially at these times of the year. So there's not one answer for everybody here, but there are some issues that we can discuss and try to navigate through those issues. I would say, don't just cut yourself off completely from your family this time of year. If they've invited you for dinner, and there's nothing compromising your religion at that dinner, that's fine. There's no problem with that. And and you feel comfortable in that environment, then that's fine. That's great. That's excellent. And sometimes you engaging with them at this time of year, it can open the door for conversations. They know that you've become Muslim, and they might open the door for conversations about Jesus or whatever, if they initiate those conversations. Sometimes there are uncomfortable environments as well that we need to be aware of, especially when it comes to the consumption of alcohol. So alhamdulillah, I'm quite lucky, because my in-laws, who are not Muslim, they don't drink alcohol whatsoever. So we can have dinner. There's no alcohol there. They don't drink. Sometimes they bought halal turkey, for us, and me and my wife, we've had dinner at my mother-in-law's house. So that's quite easy to navigate. But if it's a drinking environment, that can be a bit uncomfortable as well, especially if you converted and you used to drink a lot as well. I know one brother last year Christmas year, he was a recovering alcoholic, and he went to family party, and inadvertently I actually said I had some juice in a cup, and then he said I took a drink of it, and then I realized this has got alcohol in it, and he said it just took him back 10 years back in his recovery. So there are difficult scenarios as well that we you need to be aware of, and everybody's different. Everybody's at different stages, and best. Don't do anything that is going to put you in a situation where you feel uncomfortable or compromising your religion. But if you can, definitely keep good family ties. So another problem that arises is somebody converts to Islam, they have children that have been celebrating Christmas for 10 years or 15 years, or they're older, 20 years. They've been doing Christmas every year, and their parents, one of the parents have converted to Islam now. It's a very difficult scenario to be in as well. And another problem that may arise is our own children as well, if they're very young, and engaging with our non-Muslim relatives, that they might want to give them gifts, and they want them to engage in Christmas. So we need to be careful about how we navigate that as well. So I think try to be diplomatic as possible, but don't compromise your religion, and do what you feel comfortable in doing. So that's my advice. In New Beginnings, we actually have a podcast coming out. It might come out tomorrow or the day after, that we did with Imam Suhaib Webb from the US about this topic actually. So that will be our next podcast. So if you go to our website, beginnings.org.uk, or social media, you can look out for our next podcast, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for those very wise words. Like you said, no one can actually advise on this situation rather than those who've actually gone through themselves. And I think that's why we feel so incredibly fortunate that we've got such an amazing panel tonight. and just hearing from people who've gone through it firsthand and are in a position to advise us. And I think we'll now move on to our next speaker.
Okay, so next we'd like to introduce our sister Ellie Quinn. So a full-time traveller, Ellie took her Shahada in August of 2020 after learning about Islam over lockdown. Sister Ellie now documents both her Islamic journey as well as her travel diary on her YouTube channel, which I actually watch. So without further ado, we'd like to introduce Ellie.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for having me. And thank you for that talk as well, Sheikh Bilal. That was really interesting and definitely a reason why I follow New Beginnings and really enjoy the content from New Beginnings. So make sure you do give them a follow as well. My name's Ellie. I'm living in Manchester. I moved up here in the summer. Really enjoying it here. And as you said, I am a travel blogger as my job. So I guess I just wanted to give you a little bit of an insight as to what my life was like before being a Muslim in regards to Christmas, and then hopefully that will kind of give some context as to kind of like how I am navigating Christmas right now and kind of dealing with the challenges that will probably keep coming up in my life. So I was the biggest fan of Christmas. I was the one that would, put the decorations up as early as possible. When I grew up, I'd be the one that wanting to do the whole tree by myself, the whole house, and as I got older, planning lunches for everyone, dinners for everyone, always being part of, trying to organize my Christmas work party, and I really loved Christmas. I really got involved in the season, definitely. Now, I do think, I know, of course, that, Allah is the best of planners, and I spent my 20s kind of traveling on and off, which meant that pretty much every other year I was away. So I spent like 2 years in Australia, where although they celebrate Christmas, when you're in Australia, it doesn't feel like Christmas because it's hot, which is obviously the polar opposite to what we're used to. A barbecue on the beach doesn't feel like Christmas Day, even though it is the 25th of December. And then I spent a Christmas in Thailand, in India, and in Indonesia as well. And, it was on I think it was my second Christmas away that I realized, I did really miss Christmas, and I really missed the way that it's celebrated in the UK and the buzz, and I missed, being with my family and things like that. And it really hit me that, the reason why I missed it is because I was very lucky, alhamdulillah, to grow up with good Christmases, and having my family together, just the standard Christmas day, very much a standard Christmas day. And having that realization really reminded me, although my Christmases are probably going to look different going forward because, I had a whole plan of travel ahead of me, I appreciated the fact that I grew up with really good Christmases. And I must say now, being Muslim, I feel like that appreciation and that realization, has really helped me, because it's made me, like hold on to those memories still and realize, I did have good Christmases growing up, and, my life, is different now, but I still have those memories. And so, and I'm glad that, I spent those few years traveling where, every other year it kind of felt like I didn't really have a Christmas. And so now, as I'm in my, second year of being Muslim, it kind of feels like, this year I haven't really been that connected with Christmas, but it doesn't really feel that different because I did experience that pretty much like every other year. And when I think it came to becoming Muslim, I must say, I don't really think, the idea of not being able to celebrate Christmas did come up in my mind too much. And I don't really remember it being a concern. I think one of the main reasons is just because, I knew, in Islam, I was learning about the importance of, keeping good ties, with our family and having good intentions. And I kind of thought, from that understanding of Islam, that, is one of the reasons why, I came to Islam as well, or, realized what a, good religion it is that, I knew that wouldn't mean that I had to kind of say, no to Christmas, no to giving presents, no, to everything, or to not, having Christmas dinner with my family. So I can't really recall like thinking about it too much, which I'm pleased with. And I think, I was very trusting in the process of, how I learned about Islam in lockdown, and just how that all really progressed for me. And then, before I knew it, I was Muslim, like Sumaya said, in August 2020. I did actually then move to Istanbul for the end of last year. And then I came home just before Christmas, actually. So I kind of didn't have the lead up to Christmas really, because I was in Istanbul. But obviously last year I got home and everything went into lockdown, and I got back to my mum's house. I was in quarantine at my mum's house, and of course they celebrate Christmas, and we were in lockdown. So I guess in terms of like challenges of being faced with Christmas, last year it kind of felt like any other normal year for me. Although my family, knew I didn't really celebrate Christmas, I didn't really bring up the conversation with them that much, although they were aware. And I kind of said, like, you don't have to get me any presents because I don't celebrate Christmas. But obviously my mum wasn't going to take that for an answer. So obviously she did, which was fine. And obviously I accepted them. I, bought them presents. And, I think as far as challenges go, being in lockdown with family who celebrate Christmas, I just had to go with it. I just had to enjoy the day as we normally do, have a big breakfast, go out for a walk, cook Christmas dinner, speak to other family on, on video chat, that kind of thing. And I also kind of appreciated it because I knew, I was only at home with my mum because I was kind of like been traveling and everything like that. I knew this would be my last Christmas, have like living back at home, and after that I'm sure it wouldn't happen again. So again, I made sure that I just appreciated it for what it was and just made the best of a situation. And also my family, we used to go to church when I was very young, like a lot younger, but these days, none of my family go to church or are religious of a Christian or Catholic or anything like that. So that was not something that I had to really worry about either, that they were celebrating Christmas from a religious point of view. It was very much cultural. But this year, as I said, I just moved to Manchester. I mean, I've had a busy month actually, because I've been moving house and everything. And I must say that I haven't really, obviously there's been Christmas songs in the supermarkets non-stop. I have had Christmas songs stuck in my head literally for the last week. I think a rolling different Christmas song, even though, and I think this is what, it made me realize that even though I'm not actively putting Christmas songs on like, I used to, but you really can't get away from it in this country. You just can't. And, I converted when I was 30 years old. So I've had such, 30 years of Christmases, and, I've accepted the fact that it's going to take me quite a few years to kind of disconnect from that. It's not just going to happen in the first year or the second year, and obviously I've made steps of, like I said, not putting Christmas music on myself and not interacting in Christmas that way as I used to. And obviously no decorations in my house, and very much, myself not celebrating Christmas. But at the same time, realizing that, it is a cultural event in this country, and my family celebrate it, and my friends that are not Muslims celebrate it. So, I feel like I haven't really had any challenges this year. It's definitely helped like living by myself away from family a little bit. And, also, like I was saying before, I traveled a lot in my 20s. So I didn't really have, I wasn't expected to always be at home for Christmas. So, this year, like I'm not spending Christmas, with my mum or my dad or anyone. But because I kind of built that life, pre-being Muslim, of kind of like a very independent life, and they know like Ellie's just doing what she does. I'm actually hoping to I've booked to go to Turkey on Boxing Day, inshallah, just really hoping regulations nothing changes. But, so I feel lucky that I don't have those pressures from my family, but at the same time, recognizing that Christmas is a very much a cultural event here in the UK, and I think that even for me this year, I've been buying food, for example, that you know, I used to have when I was younger growing up, and that's like, it's a nice memory. And I bought some like the Christmas plants that you see in like Tesco's and things, just because my mum always had them in the house growing up. And this is the first year that I've kind of had, you know, Christmas in my own house. And you know, it's definitely not a tree, it's just like a little plant. But you know, it's just nice memories. And I think being able to remember that it's okay to associate with those things. You know, like Sheikh Bilal was saying, they're not red lines, you know. So I think that's really what I'm trying to remember. And you know, I did actually have a message from a sister on my Instagram earlier when I was sharing this talk, and you know, she said that she's been a revert for 7 years, and you know, she's found the most joy in, you know, seeing her family every year, and you know, having Christmas dinner with them. And you know, in, like she said, obviously it depends on the family situation and things like that, but you know, in her experience, has done nothing but strengthen the ties to her and her family, you know, especially in those first years where I think, you know, for myself, when I reverted to Islam, the one thing, you know, I didn't want to do was like become a whole different person and kind of like disassociate myself from my family and think that they think I'm someone else. And I think that Christmas is like a really big example of that, as to like, especially in those first years, what you do. If, you know, you turn around and say like, no, I'm not coming for Christmas dinner because I'm a Muslim, like that could have like potential consequences, especially at this time of the year when people are very emotional, and it is supposed to be, you know, like a time of joy and celebration and family time. I also actually was thinking as well like about spending time with Christmas, and how, you know, from some of the Muslims that I've spoken to, you know, in the UK, you know, I've said to them, like, what do you normally do on Christmas Day? And, you know, they go for dinner with family as well, because most of the time, you know, the majority of people are off work on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. So even for Muslims, you know, whatever they're eating, however they're planning their day, they're generally getting together at people's house and also just celebrating having the day off work kind of thing. So it's really not that far from what you know, what people do on Christmas that are non-Muslim. So I think that when people are perhaps thinking, you know, should I decline Christmas with my family or not? Like, that's kind of a good way to look at it, I guess. And, you know, I think one thing that I've really been conscious of is, you know, thinking about Eid and comparing it to Eid. You know, I made sure I decorated my house a little bit for Eid this year, and you know, I guess, yeah, if I can't decorate for Christmas, I'm going to decorate for Eid. And you know, this year now I'm, you know, got my own house, you know, inshallah, I really want to be able to invite my family over for Eid and show them why that's a big deal for me. And you know, and then I think going forward with Christmases, that will kind of help explain, you know, this is when we do presents and a celebration. It's not like we don't do anything. And I can imagine as well, for people who have children, whether you already had children and you reverted, or perhaps you know, if you've got children in your family, it's good to be able to show them, you know, we celebrate on Eid and this is when we do all the fun stuff. It's not like you don't get anything in the year. And yeah, I think that, you know, we can't expect to receive a good reception to Eid for us if we're not given a good reception back to our friends and our family on Christmas and Easter and things like that. I think like it is very much a situation of like, you get what you give. And so I definitely want to, you know, keep that in mind going forward. And also just recognizing that, you know, every year is going to be different. Like I said, you know, last year, my first year as a Muslim during Christmas, you know, the day on paper didn't really look any different to before I was Muslim, because like I said, I was just at home in lockdown and that was just all I could do, really. There was literally nothing else I could do. And this year, you know, I'm not seeing my family, and but I'm still, you know, enjoying certain aspects that you know, of the food and, you know, these songs that are still in my head, you know, it's like, but I think, you know, as the years go on, I'm sure that slowly I will, you know, disconnect from them and disassociate them, you know, a little bit each year. And I think that, you know, that's just something to always keep in mind, and something that I try and focus on with everything. And really, I guess, in terms of being a Muslim and being a revert, is just really that step-by-step process. And you know, it's not just gonna happen overnight, and you are obviously going to have, you know, like different experience, like different opinions on things than like born Muslims, because, you know, we experience Christmas like firsthand, you know, growing up. And so, yeah, and so I guess like I did think of a piece of advice, I guess, in terms of if people are struggling or reverts and, you know, being with family, is that, you know, if I think back to, like I said, you know, in previous years when I've been away during Christmas, you know, that has really helped. And it's kind of like my family now, like I said, they don't really question the fact that I'm not there this Christmas, because I kind of created a life pre-Muslim of, you know, being kind of here, there and everywhere. No one really knew what I was doing and didn't really have any expectations on me to be anywhere particularly. You know, so like if you are, you know, this year is, you know, already here, and we've obviously got restrictions and stuff, but, you know, inshallah things will be different next year. And perhaps if you are trying to kind of get out of a cycle of, you know, always spending Christmas with your family and feeling like you can't, then perhaps, you know, like looking to do a trip or something like that is like a good way to, as a reason as to why you're not going to spend Christmas with them, and perhaps to disassociate yourself a little bit, especially if you know, go somewhere in like an Islamic country. But at the same time, you're not then saying to your family, like, I'm not coming because I'm now Muslim. Like maybe it's just like a nice little get out, like a soft get out next year, you know, without being so direct and not really causing any harm or anything like that. But yeah, alhamdulillah, I feel yeah, like I said, I'm just, you know, it's made me appreciate even more and be even more grateful for the past experiences that I have had with my family. And, you know, and I think, like I said, just keeping like Eid in mind as well, and what I want to get back from Eid from other people that aren't Muslim really does help me with my mindset with Christmas, as to, you know, how happy I'm going to be for other people kind of who do celebrate Christmas. So yeah, I think that's all I had to say, really.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Ellie, for sharing your story, your very honest, raw experience. We look forward to, Sumaya and I definitely are looking forward to seeing your Istanbul vlog. I hope your travel plans go according to plan. I think I really love the idea of, you know, inviting your non-Muslim family over for Eid. And I think we sort of, even when people are giving this advice, they generally go for, okay, hyping up Eid, but just forgetting to give this piece of advice, and, you know, including non-Muslims in your Eid celebrations to make them, you know, aware of, okay, this is how we do it, our celebrations. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Brother Ellis Wood as our last guest speaker for the night. And after that, we'll have a question and answer session. So Brother Ellis Wood is a student at the University of Manchester, and he reverted to Islam 3 years ago. And one very interesting fact about his revert story is that he and his twin brother reverted at the same time without being aware of the other brother reverting. We are all dying to hear that story now. Over to you, Brother Ellis, whenever you're ready.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. First of all, I just want to thank you all for putting this event on, because it is a very pressing issue, especially obviously at this time of year, and as things get closer, and as how quickly Islam's spreading, especially around you know, around Britain especially. More and more people come to Islam, and if it is around this time of year, it's bam, straight away, you know, they're straight onto these kind of issues. So it's really useful that you're doing this, and obviously thanks for inviting me as well. Now, in terms of the dynamic, in terms of with me, it's a lot different to maybe what you the other two speakers have had, because at the start of our story, it was around A-level times, exams were going on, you know, you've kind of just focus everything on that. And then my brother met a friend at college. He started learning stuff about Islam from her and things like that. And the background that we come from, it's a very divided town. It's actually had a program on it. It's on the BBC. It's based on from Blackburn. And it's basically, it's very, one side of the town's against Muslims, the other side's pretty much all Muslim, you know. So coming from obviously the background I was, it was the other side of the coin, you know. The views that get instilled into you, and the people that you grow up with all have these views that are negative against Islam. So then I met a friend online, and we'd have these debates. I'd be a Christian, but, you know, not really knowing about the practices and things. And slowly then I got into it. And then I did my A-levels, putting it to the back of my mind. And then as this is happening, my brother's learning, he then tells me, thinking I'm going to kick off about it because of these negative views that we had about Islam, you know, all these random misconceptions that get thrown around. So he was really nervous to tell me, and then he told me, and I was like, everything clicks for me. And subhanAllah, it was a strange thing because it was always like something in the back of my mind didn't want to have that conversation without me even knowing what it was going to be about, you know. So then it kind of, the journey started from there. And this is obviously going to go into Christmas because the time that we had to end up telling our dad was because of Christmas. So it was a long journey of praying in secret in a small terrace house with two of us in our bedroom. For, you know, someone comes up the stairs and you're launching your mountain bed and stuff like that, you know. And then it comes to the time where alhamdulillah, I moved over here for my second year at uni, which is brilliant. And it comes to a time after telling our mum a couple of months, you know, like beforehand, that we had to tell our dad because it was home for Christmas. There's no getting out of it, especially, you know, elementary with COVID and things like that. It was impossible. You had to tackle it head on. And it was a very different dynamic because, I mean, there's the things that I'll share that, you know, that I wouldn't do in hindsight that hopefully, inshallah, you guys can benefit from. So we told him in the November, forced to tell him really, with knowing that there would be a negative reaction. And this is why maybe a lot of reverts at this time are fearing that this negative reaction coupled with Christmas can almost cause the boiling pot to you know, keep rising. And so we told him, and obviously our mum as well, and then it kicks off as naturally, and you've got to stay calm, and you know. And so I went back here, and I had a few weeks to just we kind of didn't contact for a little while just to let it sink in. And then this brings us to coming home for Christmas. And it was a very awkward time to navigate because you're not only doing it for the Christmas side of it, but you're doing it for the side that they're still accepting that you're Muslim in the first place. So it's a very tense scenario, especially for most people from these kind of areas, where any little thing can just blow it up. And if you remember last year, it was Jummah, and so it was all like, there was no getting away from it. You had to leave the house on Christmas Day, walk to the masjid because I weren't getting dropped off then, you know, and then a chunk of the day was gone. Now, funny enough, we didn't do the traditional Christmas, you know, with like it's your turkey and things like that. I just didn't like the kind of turkey in general. So we used to go out to a pub basically on Christmas Day. We used to just drink basically. Obviously I was younger then because I'm only 20 now, so I wouldn't be drinking, but so we'd go there, and funny enough, we'd actually go for a curry later on. So we'd go there, no alcohol was served, so you know, obviously alhamdulillah, if they're doing that this year, which then it'd be easy to navigate for some people anyway. So it's a very different vibe. It's not stuck in a house. But last Christmas was obviously a little different because in my own personal journey, especially being so young, I wanted to set a precedent of do's and don'ts back then. I didn't want to compromise pretty much anything really, because I thought if I do it the next year, where I then kind of cut it off, I thought it's going to look even more awkward. And with two of us, with me and my brother, it was a lot easier to kind of, you know, a bit of planning in the background and things like that. So I think the important thing for us was communicating a lot with my mum was more accepting than my dad about it. So I was mentioning a long time beforehand what I've kind of wanted to do with Christmas. So it was more like I didn't want anything for any presents. But obviously, it's like Ellie was mentioning, it's very difficult because, you know, your family want to give, don't they? Obviously, we were still at the stage where we'd get the odd present in the past, but it was more like, you know, I'm a student, I can't shell out a lot of money for presents anyway. So it wasn't as you know, it's bad in terms of just not getting the presents. So yeah, it was different and difficult because of this kind of tension that was building anyway. And obviously the things that that you was worrying about as well is ruining it for the rest of the family. And having these awkward conversations, because once I told my dad, he then told the rest of my family. And so they knew I was Muslim without really talking about it. So then it was that sitting there awkwardly on Christmas Day, knowing what they're thinking, and then kind of trying to be positive about it, you know. Now, probably one of the things that I do regret in hindsight is I would communicate a lot with my mum, but not with my dad about it. So I ended up telling him on Christmas Eve that we don't actually celebrate Christmas. Now, I thought that was going to be quite common knowledge, to be honest, that Muslims don't celebrate Christmas. But it was kind of surprised. So in hindsight, I'd probably done a little bit earlier than Christmas Eve. So that's my first bit of advice. Another thing, like I said, from a personal point of view, is set the boundaries, especially if you're someone our age as well, where maybe you're in uni and things, is to just set the boundaries quite clear early, because as you grow up, you're gonna have kids, inshallah, and things like that. And on a personal point of view, I wouldn't want to integrate them too much into that, because they obviously meet their non-Muslim friends and they're that they're getting into these bad practices, really, into even its origins really of Christmas as well. It's a question. So I would set the precedent early, one, to avoid awkwardness, and then also to kind of like set the boundaries on what you're going to want as well. So on the awkward Christmas calls, like you'd get your presents and that, you'd have to ring all your family and friends up and go, oh my, that was also a thing to navigate around. Your names in cards and stuff like that. I wasn't a fan of signing cards off to say, it was just, you've got to respect it 100%. You have to respect anyone's festivals or whatever, but it's definitely not something that I wanted to get involved in, So that was a very awkward one to navigate around. But I just had a chat with my mum about it, and I don't know, maybe she put something on the sly, I'm not sure, but there was something in my grandma's room anyway. And then it was like the friends and Merry Christmas. I didn't find it too difficult in terms of that side of things, especially at university. My friends back home, a lot still don't know I'm Muslim, actually. And naturally, as you grow older, you kind of see who you want to hang around with and who you don't anyway. Even before I was Muslim, like if some of my friends are getting into drugs and things like that, and I wanted to go to uni and stuff, so it was a bit like I cut a lot of my mates off after school anyway. So it was that was quite easy. But the ones at university who knew I was Muslim, they was very accepting anyway. And I think just explaining it to them in a way that's respectful, telling them what you kind of feel about it, maybe even throwing a bit of dawah in there as well, just kind of see why you do it, and backing up why you don't do it, not just with like, because I'm a Muslim and I want to do what I want kind of thing, but in a way that's like, explain exactly why Islamically we don't do it, in a way that's obviously respectful as well. And then if, personally, it's obviously logical why we don't practice these things, and then if they see that logic, it can kind of make them accept it more, and kind of think, okay, fair enough, he's doing it for an acceptable reason, So yeah, that's another thing. In terms of unexpected things, it wasn't really unexpected in terms of from our point of view, because it just got brushed under the carpet. My dad was just brushing things under the carpet. So yeah, and always act with the character that a Muslim should act. In terms of, if you are going round to someone's for Christmas, like for us, you say in the environment like we used to do, where we'd go for a curry, for example, that's right, because you can happily do that anyway, because there's no alcohol there. You can still pray, obviously. But acting in the right character that, like Bilal was mentioned earlier, actually, where it can kind of portray Islam at this time, where your family are coming together. You can show what Islam's about and show why it's so great, and the etiquettes of it and these kind of things. It's a perfect time to kind of show exactly who you are and the person you've become from it. So I think that's also a very good way to go about it, is to kind of treat it as a way to kind of portray Islam. And then it was also keeping the family ties. It's a balancing act between that and these red lines. So really, like I said, it's pretty much a summary of what I said earlier. It's just making sure that you set these boundaries, especially like I say, if you're young, set them so they can kind of understand. And then also, like Ellie was mentioning, get them a gift for Eid as well. That's very important. Let them know your practices, and over time, because I've only had one Christmas where they've kind of known about it. They'll come to accept it and come to even get involved with Eid, which will be class, to be honest. Yeah. So yeah, that's about it really.
Jazakallah khair for sharing your experience, Brother Ellis. I think it was very interesting how you mentioned setting clear boundaries early on so that you don't have issues crop up in the future. And also you've given a lot of practical advice on how to balance, interacting with family, but at the same time not compromising values. So Jazakallah khair for that. Thank you to everybody, all the three speakers, for sharing your wise words. We're going to now move on to the last part of tonight's event, inshallah, which is the Q&A. So I'm just going to get the question answers up. So our first question is, how do you deal with Christmas if you haven't told your family that you are Muslim? So if anybody would like to answer that.
I mean, that's a very, very difficult one, to be honest. It's something that we actually did. Well, I didn't do because I wasn't technically a Muslim at that point. I accepted it in the January, but my brother were. And it's a very, very difficult situation to overcome, really, because especially if they don't know, you've either got to dodge it completely in terms of like what Ellie's saying, plan a trip. If you're at uni, like similar to something what I'm doing this year, because I don't want to compromise what they enjoy, which is going out and I'm going to a pub or something. I'm staying here for Christmas Day and studying, and then at New Year time, I'm going to come back and chill with them for a bit. So maybe if you're at university, all of a sudden you know an essay, you want to focus on an essay, anything to swerve it basically, but obviously not lie, but just swerve what's going on. That's very important. Other than that, it's really difficult to kind of, because we would ended up forced to tell him because of Christmas. Do you get me? So I think the best bet is to buy time, is to just swerve it somewhere, really. So yeah.
Would any of the other speakers perhaps want to add anything to this question? Or
yeah, I agree. It's a really, really hard one. I think, definitely agree with Ellis, trying to kind of get out of it. And then, if you could not see your family. But I think, if you are going to see your family, I know kind of, I think especially when it comes to like food as well, especially if you're thinking of like a Christmas dinner and like halal food, and obviously usually kind of pork is very much is very prevalent for Christmas dinner. It would definitely help if you were like vegetarian. Actually, obviously like last year and things, even with mixing up Christmas dinner, I'm not really vegetarian anymore, but I've been vegetarian on and off quite a lot. So, and even, with the idea of halal meat, no pork and stuff, even in my journey, that hasn't been a problem because I've, been vegetarian for so long and things. But I think, I guess just trying to like make the most of what it is right now. And I think maybe like my experience like last year is just, appreciating it, thinking in your mind, like this is potentially like my last Christmas, maybe, especially if you're, already a little bit older anyway, and you're kind of looking forward to more like independent Christmases, either with friends or with, family going forward. Just kind of appreciating what it is this year, and making those memories for your family. And then after that, you can kind of, put an end to it perhaps.
Cool, thank you so much. So we've got a specific question for Sheikh Bilal now. So the fiqh of non-Muslim interaction and conduction around Christmas for reverts. So what is and isn't permissible?
Like I said, there's not one answer for everybody. And, with somebody who's converted to Islam, as you can see, the people are hiding it. They haven't even told their family. Some people they have told their families. People have different relationships with their families. So some mufti in Saudi Arabia is not going to give you the answer that you need, because it's not a one size fits all answer. So you know best what to do in your situation. Like I said, there are red lines that you can't cross unless you're hiding your Islam and you're fearful that some harm may come to you. Then you can even pretend that you are not even Muslim as well. because you fear that you might get attacked or physically harmed. That is a very exceptional circumstance. But you know best how to navigate it. And like we said, if things are connected to religious acts of worship, then that would be a red line. If you openly come out as a Muslim and there's no harm to your life or physical person, then you need to avoid those aspects, I think. And everything else is generally okay. We even have some scholars that say it's okay to celebrate Christmas. That's one opinion among some contemporary scholars. Not in the religious aspect, going to church or singing hymns, but they say that Jesus Christ is obviously a much revered prophet in Islam, and this is a celebration of the day that he was born. And even the Quran speaks about the day that Jesus was born as well. I'm not saying I agree with it, I'm just saying that this is what the opinion is of some contemporary scholars. So there's flexibility there. So it's up to you. You know best.
Amazing, Jazakallah khair. For that, so next question we have for Sister Ellis. No, sorry, Sister Ellie, I think. Yeah. So what kind of logic did you use to explain to your family why don't we celebrate Christmas?
To be honest, actually, Ellis was saying about, explaining it to family, that obviously did strike me as, that's obviously a good thing to do, because I can't really remember if I had that conversation with my family. I think, for one, maybe naively, a bit like Ellie said, I kind of assumed that they knew why Muslims didn't. So I think that's definitely something, even for me, obviously, to keep in mind still going forward with other friends and family, is to not just assume that people know. And I think, explain, I think it's also good, to explain that we, believe in Jesus as a prophet. I think that kind of, from what I've heard people say before, that kind of creates, a bit of commonality, I guess, to say, it's not like Muslims just completely don't believe in Jesus at all. But, just explain that, it's not in our religion to do so. But to be honest, that's something that I'm still navigating. So I'm happy for other suggestions on how to explain it as well, to be honest.
Amazing.
Sorry, if I just add to that. Sorry. I think it would depend on very much on how they are in terms of support too, in terms of how open they are to kind of conversations about Islamic things and stuff like that. If they are open, maybe mention the history of Christmas and how it kind of really, like, for example, most biblical scholars say that Jesus was actually born in the summer, and the history of the Christmas trees and all this stuff. It's actually a Nordic pagan practice. So it depended on how open they are to these kind of things, because obviously it's very dependent. You don't want to just start getting kicked out your house. You just but then if they are open to that, then maybe tackling it that kind of way to educate them logically and to think, okay, yeah, he's kind of right, So I think that's also can be quite important.
Amazing, cool. Thank you for that practical advice. Our next question is, if my family are Christian and wish to go to church, should I avoid going with them?
I think we direct that towards Sheikh Bilal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, try to definitely avoid that, I think, because that is something that is would be a very religious practice. Obviously, you could go there, but what are you going to do there, really? If they know that you're Muslim, and maybe explain to them, why it's not appropriate for you to go. I've become Muslim now, and I am following a different religion, and it's not permitted for me to engage in practices of other religions. So there is a scenario actually that the scholars of jurisprudence mention about a man who's married to a Christian wife, and you know, taking her to church. And so they say he can bring her back from the church, but he can't take her to the church. He can't stop her from going. He can allow her to go to the church, but he wouldn't be allowed to take her there, but he can bring her back from the church. So that's something interesting to think about.
So definitely what you could do is walk back with your family on the way back from church, but you can't go there. I guess you can explain that. So next question, we have one in the chat, is it permissible to eat dinner with them at Christmas even if their celebration is religious?
That's perfectly fine. So there's no problem with that. It's actually something that's also mentioned by classical jurists, that if you have been invited by somebody who's not Muslim on the occasion of their religious festival, and your intention is not to celebrate their festival, but your intention is just to respond to their invitation and enjoy some food and drink, then there's no problem with that whatsoever. As long as it's halal food, or you know, it's a vegetarian option, of course.
Sheikh, perhaps a follow-up question from there would be, if there's alcohol present at the table and it's being consumed, would that be permissible for you if you're openly Muslim and your family knows, and you can opt out of it? So should you opt out of it? Is it something that would be impermissible to sit there?
Yeah, so you know, that's another issue that comes up, of course, especially with the drinking of wine and brandy, and which is commonly drank at Christmas time. So the narrations from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are quite clear about the person who sits at a table where wine is being drunk. So that should try to avoid that as much as possible. One of the things I do with some of my non-Muslim family members who drink, they actually ask us, is it okay? Because we go out to restaurants and for meals and stuff. So they'll ask, about drinking at the same table. And I'll just say, we prefer that you don't. And they're respectful of that. So I think having discussion, communication, speak to them, be open with them, just be honest with them about it. And usually they understand and they'll be okay. Well, your other option is just to go to a different room. If they start drinking, have the meal, and then you can go to a different room and excuse yourself from that scenario. In the case of somebody hiding their Islam, where they fear they might get physically harmed, then they will be excused. In cases of necessity, of dire necessity, they may be excused from that situation.
I think next question is, if my family are wishing me Merry Christmas or saying Merry Christmas, is it inappropriate or haram to say it back?
Sheikh, I guess the fifth question would be
these are all directed to me. What do you guys do? What do other people do?
I mean, I think for me, with a lot of these questions, it's still just something, that I'm navigating even myself. And I think, like even in terms of saying Merry Christmas, this year, for example, I feel like I'm happy, we'll FaceTime a couple of my family, say Merry Christmas to them, because again, I know if I don't, and if I completely ignore the day from, ignore that day for them, like I know that will upset them. And that's not something that I want to do. And again, taking that back to Eid, like this year, like none of my family really said, Happy Eid to me or anything, because they didn't understand it. But, obviously this was just my first, Ramadan in Eid and things this year, which I understand that they don't understand it yet. But going forward, inshallah, like I said, with wanting to invite them around and include them in Eid, I want them to say Happy Eid to me. and I would like that, and that would make me happy. So how I'm gonna approach it is to be able to say that back to them for their holiday.
Ellis?
Yeah, I think it is a difficult one to navigate. I think it would depend on the family ties for me. I mean, personally, I try and stay as far away as I possibly can from it personally. However, if it was going to cause a kickoff, then maybe I would do it. But again, the reason why I'm passing these on to the Sheikh is because I don't want to answer him fatwas and things, you know what I'm saying? So I'd maybe ask a local scholar, keeping like your views consistent, you know, like so you can be more bespoke to kind of what your situation is. But yeah, that's basically why I was dodging that question. So yeah.
I think do we have to say Merry Christmas back? Is there something we can say instead? Happy holidays, or enjoy your day, or do we actually have to say Merry Christmas and use that term? So one scholar I know in Manchester, he actually says Allah bless you, meaning may Allah bless you with Islam. May God bless you, says may God bless you. And he actually gets a better response than saying Merry Christmas. So there are many other things that we can say without having to say Merry Christmas. I don't like to say it myself, to be honest with you, and I don't say it myself. I will say something else, like may Allah bless you, or enjoy your holidays, or whatever. But again, some scholars, contemporary scholars, they do allow it based on the fact that you saying it is not necessarily venerating their religious day or being in agreement or showing that you agree with it. Rather, it's just reciprocal manners and from a social viewpoint. So they do allow it based on that. Of course, those scholars who say it's okay for Muslims to partake in Christmas as well, they will say that of course it's okay for you to say Merry Christmas, because you're saying happy day of the birth of Jesus, which Muslims also should be happy about as well. So I'm not saying that I agree with one opinion or the other. I'm just telling you these are the views that are present from the learned scholars of today.
So the next question we have here is that what advice would you give to brothers and sisters who have not revealed the conversion/reversion to their families?
In terms of a general thing, Ellie actually mentioned it, and it came to my mind. That's a really good idea. Is just say you're turning vegetarian. To be honest, like it's a great idea because obviously it's impossible to get away from. So saying that, say you're caring about the animals, or whatever, I don't know, and then go down that route. So that's one way to avoid that. It almost if you are feeling physical harm, if you feel like you're going to be hurt or something, then it's different to then if you're just doing it because you don't want to have an awkward conversation, So the advice that I'd give is, one, stay calm, because there's a lot of times that I was like going mental when my dad would come up when I'm praying to her or something, and realize time it well when you tell them. So do it when you're in a good way, if you've got somewhere to go to. So obviously for me, it was like I didn't have a clue how the reaction was going to be, So I thought once I got this place, I thought, okay, I'm at a stage now where if anything happens, I can kind of just come here and just, I'll be okay. So that's another advice. Also getting in touch with people like-minded around you. So a lot of the time, I mean, alhamdulillah, I've got my brother who's he's obviously a little further in the journey because he's been Muslim a little bit longer. So that was an automatic, always someone to talk to. But a lot of people, especially in places like, I know some brothers in Yorkshire, where it's not as Muslim populated and it's not as, you haven't got the same amount of people around you. And that's really, really, I really feel for them brothers and sisters. So to get in touch with them, if you're local to Blackburn, we actually have something called, it's called Hope and Help. and it's a brilliant organisation. Basically, it's a charity that kind of, we're building a community of Muslims together, Revert Muslims, and it's backed by scholars, so you can kind of have a consistent scholarly view on what you should be doing as you progress through Islam. Now, I think, if I'm not wrong, it's hopeandhelp.uk in terms of the website if you do want to get involved with that. But even in general, just getting involved with like Revert communities here and there helps a lot in terms of getting advice and bespoke advice, because you can kind of just tell them what exactly your situation is, and then get responses that way. So I think, because obviously one glove doesn't fit all, it's hard to kind of just give advice as a flat thing, you know. So something like that would help quite a lot, yeah.
I guess somebody has very kindly put the link in the chat to the organization mentioning, so please do check this out. And also, Barakallahu Feek, Brother Bilal, he has also put the link to his organization in the chat, so so people can check that out too. Sheikh, would the link to the podcast be there? Would it be available there? Yeah, okay, so
yes, the podcast, yeah, it's available on the website. The link's on there, and it should be out in the next couple of days, inshallah.
Okay.
But we've got other podcasts as well you can listen to in the meantime.
Amazing. So we just got another question. I was a member of the Christian Union before I converted. I still haven't told some of my friends from the community. How did you tell those friends when you converted?
I mean, personally, I haven't told a lot of my mates from Blackburn, to be honest. I've told the people I was very close with, but a lot of them I just got away because I thought it's not really the path I want to be going down. I know that they'd be against it. I know they just talk behind my back. It was like, I have new mates at uni and stuff, so it's hard for me to kind of reply in that way because I haven't done it myself, you know. But almost doing it in a way that's obviously respecting their view, but saying, well, this is what's brought me to Islam. This is it is a good way of going about it. No, I actually don't know what the Christian Union is. Does anyone know? Does anyone know what that is? No. But in terms of, I'll basically apply it to what the views were back home. And in terms of like the EDL, in terms of what we was going through, it was almost like it's a contrary to Islam, isn't it? In terms of what they thought, and it's very difficult to navigate them situations because you know straight away it's going to be you're going to be at loggerheads almost, and you've got to stay calm. So it's very difficult for me to answer really that. But I can only just say do it in a very respectful way, and in a way that's kind of, yeah, just respectful really, just understanding their views, but saying, well, I'm just going down a different path, you know, and then seeing themselves, seeing how that relationship as mates or whatever goes. And if they want to distance themselves from you, then so be it, you know, and you can find friends that are, you know, more liking to you if they do decide to distance themselves, you know. But other than that, I can't really answer because I haven't done it myself, so.
right. So I believe, if I've not understood it incorrectly, the Christian Union was in reference to a student society on campus that is perhaps similar to how we have an ISOC. I think there's a question in the chat that would be a good follow-up to this one. That is, how have you found the reaction from the different cultural groups, reaction to your conversion? I think this is more of a general interest question. People just want to know, you know, how did people react to, you know, hearing the news of you converting? Sister Ellie, maybe you want to answer this one because I guess you had a good fan following before you reverted and then after.
Yes, yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself before, but now I can. Yeah, no, so also I think this, I guess it's like a similar kind of question as before as well. And just to point on to what Ellis was saying, what made me, what came to my mind is also, you know, really thinking about if you think there's going to be people who it might be hard to tell, or you think that might bring up complicated you know, conversations, is, you know, who do you really need to tell? Because, you know, for me, for example, you know, obviously I told all my close, you know, my close family, but a lot of my aunties and uncles and people I don't really see that much. I didn't tell them, and I let kind of my dad say things, and obviously I posted publicly online. A lot of people follow me anyway and kind of found out that way. And, you know, a lot of my old friends from school, I don't really speak to anymore either. They're just kind of, you know, Facebook friends that are just been, you know, sat there and, you know, occasionally say happy birthday and that kind of thing. So, you know, I didn't really feel like, you know, I had to go around and tell everyone in that way. So yeah, just as an idea, maybe if it is people in your past that, you know, you don't really speak to that much, and, you know, at least don't let yourself worry about it too much, or people's reactions, and let that kind of get to you if they're not actually people who are, you know, present and relevant in your life right now. And then, yeah, reaction from different cultural groups. I think, yeah, for me, alhamdulillah, like, you know, a lot, you know, my family are very, you know, very open-minded anyway. I wouldn't say they knew like kind of many Muslims or knew, you know, what Islam was about at all, but are very open people. And a lot of my friends as well, you know, my close friends I met traveling, to be honest. And, you know, and a lot of my friends right now are, you know, travel bloggers and things like that. So, you know, they're very, you know, if they were to have a problem, you know, I think there would be some concern there of how respectful they are of other people as kind of, you know, as travelers and things. So, you know, they obviously have got very open minds as well. Yeah, to be honest, I was really lucky with my reaction. And I think, you know, also just explaining, you know, like Ellie said, like, you know, explaining to people, you know, the why, you know, okay, you're becoming Muslim, but explaining the why, and also explaining, you know, what implications that has, like what is going to change about your life now, or what's not going to change. You know, sometimes just reassuring people, you know, I'm not going to suddenly change into this other person, or, you know, my personality is still the same. There's just going to be these changes, and just kind of explaining those as well. And that's something that initially I didn't explain too well. Like, alhamdulillah, I didn't, you know, have any consequences or anything, like, but when I think back and when I told my mum, like, I really didn't explain it very well to her. So yes, but yeah, in terms of kind of different cultural groups, to be honest, it's not something I can comment on, because I didn't have that experience.
Just to add to that, it was I mean, in terms of different cultural groups, alhamdulillah, it was fantastic. It was obviously my brother did his shahada at the masjid, so that was brilliant. And really, that's kind of what gets you through it a lot of the time. You know, like we go for Eid, we go to the Mola's house. You know, it's all like, it's fantastic for us, really. But that's because we live in an area that's very Muslim populated. So you can kind of, if you want to just fire off out your house and immerse yourself into it, you can do, you know. So that's in terms of the direct answer to it. So yeah, it's been very good from my point of view.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, okay, that did make me think that, yeah, in terms of the cultural group, as in Muslims, reacting to my version, you know, obviously, like I said, I do post everything so publicly online that actually, you know, having that, you know, having Muslims like give me the congratulations and tell me how happy they were that I became Muslim, you know, that really, really did help me as well. So just going off them, what Ellis said, you know, if you, you know, if you find that people are not that supportive around you, or they don't really understand, then it is even more so of a reason to, you know, try and connect with some Muslims around you, because actually that, you know, positivity that they give and that kind of encouragement, you know, for me, it has been, you know, such a savior. It's been really, really brilliant and really kept me going and helps me understand things. So I would definitely search for that if you can, because I found it very beneficial.
I think that just reminds us as heritage Muslims, as born Muslims, just a reminder to actively reach out to people who might be lacking the sort of community support at the initial stages, and also keep checking in time to time to see, you know, how those around us are doing, inshallah. But I think that was our last question of the night. But barakallahu feeki, for the speakers for turning up, and for everyone else for attending. We have a form that we'd like you to fill out. If someone can share the QR code on the screen, and if you can, someone can put the link in the chat too. Yes. So this is about, we want to hear about what your needs are and how we can sort of help you, support you that way. So if you could just scan the QR code and fill out the survey, and the link is also in the chat if you can access it that way. And let us know what you need and how we can support you. There was someone in the chat who was asking whether there was a WhatsApp group, and inshallah, if you leave your contact details in the survey, we can inshallah look into creating group chats for Revert brothers and sisters, inshallah, so you can all stay in touch. But that is all from us tonight, and you're free to go. Assalamu alaikum.
Just adding one more thing, sorry guys, I know you're all leaving, but just as the University of Manchester Islamic Society, we're actually planning to do a lot more events for Revert brothers and sisters, so please do keep your eye out on socials, because we'll be posting inshallah soon. So yeah, and just another thing, Jazakallah khair to our speakers again for coming and taking your precious time out. You know, we're honoured to have you here. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah for inviting us all, yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for inviting us, everyone.
ريض يا الطارش يلم عنا خط بكتابك الترحيب لو سرابك